This meeting
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, everyone's familiar with non-duality, yes? Some people familiar with zenbitchslap.com? Yes? No? Yeah. Well, let's just start with how we see the idea of non-duality. So, there was a great master, Ramana Maharshi, and he framed a statement, says it many different ways, but one of the ways is the greatest mystery is reality wanting to attain reality, being ourselves reality. So the assumption or the premise that the whole talk is based on is this fact of being ourselves reality. That's the essence of non-duality, is that what's looking is what you're looking for, not what's looking going through 800 trials and tribulations to become what you're looking for, but what's looking, not who, but what is what we're looking for. So there's an immediacy to the message because the message is already in place. So there's no, the delivery of the message says you received this message long time ago. That's basically the delivery of the message. That which you think you are can't get the message. Yeah, this is what discourages a lot of people. It's sort of like in the desert, there's a big desert tortoise, and a coyote comes by. Looks at the tortoise as a source of food. The tortoise withdraws itself. The coyote tries to get in about a minute or two and realizes that it's impossible, much quicker than us, basically. But it realizes it's not going to get to the meat, and it loses interest in that whole thing. So in a way, the mental state looking for whatever it can get an advantage out of gets introduced to non-duality, and it seeks to get an advantage out of it, and it usually fails miserably, and therefore, in a way, that's how it serves us. So basically, the premise is you are what you're looking for, and looking for it would be a deterrent to that fact. Yes? So we started, the first video we ever put out was a sheep and lion video. It's an old Hindu story. And there's a lioness and her cub, and they're roaming around. The cub is totally dependent on the lioness. One day the lioness gets killed and the cub is now orphaned. The orphan, it's roaming around, doesn't know what to do. It sees a herd of sheep and it starts moving towards them. Now the sheep knows it's a lion. They get a little worried, but they realize the lion doesn't even know it's a lion, so it ingratiates itself into the sheep herd, and it tries to become a sheep or be a sheep. Yeah. Now, it has an underlying irritable restlessness and discontent because it keeps thinking it wants to eat the sheep it's looking at, and it has to override that little impulse. And then it basically can't believe why these people are worried about being a sweater next year and shit like that. But it just doesn't know any better, so it starts chewing cud or trying to, not enjoying it that much, doesn't have the right teeth for it. And then it looks at a sheep and it gets together with her. They have babies, they look a little weird, but they get rationalized away. And now it's been a sheep, seemingly, for all intents and purposes, for a few years. And it's risen up at the sheep rank, really. It's like the elder of the sheep herd. And but it's still just, it has everything a sheep would want, but it's not really, it's not translating into something that it's lacking. It doesn't know any better, but it's tolerating it. So one day he's guiding the sheep all around this savannah. They stop to chew some cud. A big old lion checks it out, starts running down a hill. As it's running toward the herd, it sees the young lion, and it thinks it's joining with the hunt, but in fact it's running with the sheep. So it veers off and it tackles the young lion. The young lion rolls over on its back and says, looks at the lion and says, "I'm just a humble sheep. Please don't eat me, Mr. Lion." The old lion doesn't say anything, just grabs it by the neck, drags it to the water hole, and puts both their heads out. And the young lion sees the old lion's reflection and its own and gets it. Yeah? What does it get? That it suddenly became a lion? No, it got that it's always been a lion. Yeah? So it didn't matter if it was a month, a day, or 20 years of thinking it was a sheep. It never became a sheep. Yeah? It doesn't matter the length of time you think you've been identified as it. It just doesn't matter. It can get erased like that. Now, that's usually the end of the story, but it's not the end of the story, because what happens is and then the old lion looks at the young lion and goes roar. Now, about a day before that, the only way the young lion would think it could roar would be taking roaring lessons for about 3 months and shit. But now that it's recognized its nature, it roars, yeah? And that's the end of the story. But it isn't the end of the story with us, because when the young lion and the old lion splits and the young lion walks away from the pond, the head of the lion says, "I just had an incredible experience of being a lion, quote unquote, as a sheep." Yeah? So the sheep programming kicks in. Totally neuters the peak experience of recognizing lionhood. It just disappears, been claimed like everything else. This is not that warning wasn't in the first story. It wasn't. The first story ended when the lion saw the old lions and its reflection. And that was that. But it isn't that way here and now. Yeah? Because what happens is people leave because they've been brought to tons of pools, tons of reflections of their true self. What's happened? It just takes a minute or two. The head overrides that revelation and claims it and says, "I, as a sheep, has just had a great experience of being like a lion." And then I talk to all the other sheep, and then we start making groups. How can a sheep become like a lion? I think I got the quickest way. Join us every Saturday. Roaring lessons, additional price. Hair straightening, that's also an additional price. And there we are. Now we're on the business of becoming a lion as a sheep. The message is you're a lion. Yeah? And that's the beginning of the message. Because that's the fact. The fact of non-duality is you're a lion. The message of a non-duality is what you're not. That's the message of it. The fact is you're a lion. The message is you're not a sheep. Yeah? So how does the sheep keep arising and taking seemingly, it's appearing to the lion that it's happened, it seemingly takes the place of the lion. Yeah? So now we look at the sheep, but we don't talk to the sheep about being a sheep. We're talking through the sheep to the lion about being a sheep. Yes? If you try to convince a sheep it's not a sheep, it's just going to try to be a non-sheep as a sheep. It doesn't go anywhere. And you don't have to convince the lion it's not a sheep. You just share this basic understanding so that the lion can recognize a fact that's already in place. It's not going to become a lion, and it never has not been a lion. So the message is just about the warnings of how the sheepness will arise and take the place, seemingly, of the lion. And you'll be going to lion meetings, and you'll walk in as a sheep, you'll resonate as a lion, and you'll walk out as a sheep. What's the freaking point? Yes? So this is not a message of I'm going to describe what it's like to be a lion. It doesn't go anywhere. Yeah? It just makes it worse for the sheep. Yeah? The sheep has enough troubles as a sheep. If it's supposed to be a lion, you're just adding on a huge amount of responsibility it hasn't the ability to arrive at. It doesn't have canines. It's not going to tear flesh from fucking bone. So the whole message is being ourselves reality. Why the hell, this would be my little addition, being ourselves reality, why the hell are we looking for reality? There must be something going on that makes total sense in looking for reality. Yes? There's got to be a programming or some activity that has us identified as something that we're not, being ourselves reality, which causes us, when we run into enough trouble or we speculate enough on what's going on here, we may get a desire to know reality with the hopes that that would change how I'm feeling now. Maybe that will be the answer to all my problems. Yeah? But being ourselves reality, you can't use reality to seek reality. Yeah? If you were anything else, you could use reality if it was a tool to seek reality, but you are reality. Now, if that doesn't trigger with you, they should have other names, because that's what I see non-duality is. It's a fact, yeah? And the fact is you are that. And immediately, that's the assumption, and then all the desire to know that is turned to see what you're not. The desire to understand the incomprehensible, now you understand what's easily understood. You can see the mental activity, yes? You can see the mental logic. You can listen to your head for 2 minutes and you realize it's totally contrary to the great statement of Hoang Po, the great Zen master, which is, whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving. Listen to your head. Your head is assuming that which is perceived is what's perceiving. Yes or no? Yeah. When you listen, when the head is listened to, the assumption, subjectivity, is seen as an attribute of an object. That's duality. Yeah? What non-duality is a negation of that. It's not, it negates that as the starting point. Yes? And what's so beautiful about non-duality, because it doesn't give an inch to what you're not, it puts all these misunderstandings into a very stark contrast. Yeah? That other systems don't, because other systems include the possibility, yeah, you are this. Paul is where you're starting from. Non-duality negates that starting point. That's the beauty of it. Yeah? It negates where we look from that makes a lot of sense in a mode of seeking. Yeah? But if you see that as not you, shit makes no sense. Yeah? And now you have the ears to hear. Hey, you don't spend a minute looking for what can't be found. You don't. Yeah? You see blue is blue and red is red. Things are clear. Not for you, but you, the activity of the production of you becomes very clear. You see it. Yeah? And obviously, one of the great axioms of life is if you see it, you're not it. Yeah? So you see it, you're not that. Yeah? So in a weird way, there's a little trick to arrive at where we already are, which is negation. That's all. It's a negation. So non-duality is a negation, the title. It's not two. Yeah? There's nothing called not Buddhism, or not Kabbalah, or not Judaism, or not Catholicism. Those things, their path isn't a negative path. Yeah, or a possibility, but non-duality is completely a path of negation. It's no path, it negates that. Yeah? Everything else is an add-on. So, yeah. And it just so happened, the action figure, the way it's built, it leans to slackerhood, and it's a perfect match. Yeah. So, yes. Anyone, you want to have questions? I don't know how you want to carry on, but... So, all right, we use the term selfing quite a lot. So selfing is the mental activities that are the act of being identified as a long-lasting, independent, separate thing. Yeah? That's been given the attributes of subjectivity as if I have those traits, that I'm the one who's seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. It's a huge misappropriation. So basically, the selfing, the memory system sees you as a body, the thought system thinks of you as a body, your perception sees things to reinforce that you're a thing. Basically, all the programming of what we're relying on as the action figure is completely contrary to what we are. Yeah. It's cast as a noun, and the only way we're a verbing in a way, at least in manifestation, we're seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, thinking, doing, da 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 da. In the mental state, we're seen as a noun. Yeah. So you failed the first test of non-duality. A doer thinking it's doing. That's noun verb. That's duality. Bing, you're off the game board. Let me get slick up. Bing, you're off the game board.
Hi,
Yeah.
Paul. Gabri has his hand up if you want to answer his question.
Well, I'll try, yes.
Hey,
Yes?
Paul.
Hey. Oh, it's Gabe.
Anyway, so that last add-on to the story that the lion land on, you said it doesn't end at the pool, right? The lion goes back to sheephood, thinking it's a sheep. It had this experience, of wow, I'm a lion. Goes back. I think that's one of the main hang-ups is that the lion, in a sense, and to use another metaphor, is going back to hang out with a bunch of lions that also think they're sheep, which would be just general people in general. So I think, having to go back into that and spend time in that, where say the lions that think they're sheep value grass and all this stuff, it's like that's a world that, the lion, for better or for worse, kind of has to live in, being that we live on a planet with, 8 billion people or whatever. So I guess that seems like the difficulty. The option or the part of the story, the lion doesn't go off with the other lion and lives amongst lions. In the end, in your add-on, he kind of goes back. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but basically it's, knowing that you still got to live in a world where a lot of stuff's going on based on people valuing self, people, places, and things and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm not sure if that even came out as a question, but that's it.
Yeah, but see, all the sheep, seemingly, this is just an imagery, are lions, yeah? And in time, in the looking through the lens of time, the lion is appearing as a sheep, yeah? But resting in timelessness, you see the lion, yeah? So there's no real argument with it. So when in Rome, you do as the Romans do, but that doesn't verify that you're a Roman, yeah? Yeah. And so how you travel lighter as a sheep, yeah? Knowing you're not one, really. But the experience is going to be represented by a sheep, but what's causing the lightness of that sheep's experience is not from the sheep, yeah? It's from the lionhood, so to speak. Yeah, it's beautiful in a way. So, no time, no appearance of sheep. Time, appearance of sheep, seemingly no appearance of lion. Yeah? Yes? So, we seem to be in time, but we're not of time. We're of lion, we're of no time, and we're in time, seemingly, as an experience. It's not antagonistic or in a conflict. Yeah? It blends all right after a while. Yeah? Yeah. So.
Mike has his hand up.
And you'll run into some lions too, Yeah. Yes. Mike?
Hey, again. I'm glad you guys are picking apart the metaphor. Like Gabe introduced, that there's no all the other quote unquote sheep, like you were saying, are actually lions, but there's that interim stage where there's a questioning that allows for the lion, a lion supposedly, to start questioning itself, and then the very basic part about like supposedly showing the lion or the cub that it's a lion is exactly the opposite of the fact that we can't be shown, right? That we are that which is looking, so it can't be shown that it's the lion. But more particularly, just yeah, expanding on that cool aspect of what we are experiencing a limitation that you can call it what we're not, right? So it's a little weird constricted movement that obviously has gotten very upset from identifying with it. But in that movement to not identify with it and yet be back in the sheep, knowing they're not sheep, right? But it's not upset. It's not upset. I mean, in a way, we won't even notice they're sheep, right? Because you're not bothered by the limitation here. But any movements towards like, oh, that person's complaining or something like that, can be met with an immediate return to being in that. Okay, I've noticed that there's complaining, and that comes from sheephood, which is actually lionhood, all pissed off that it's thinking it's something else. And you can then be like kind. But yeah, that like as you know, I've been so happy all this time, running across this message, because you can't be directly kind. You know, um, so yeah, that aspect of the lion sheep story that you tell, right? That it's no, they're not, and they're not sheep. you know, and yet,
You're just
in language we
using,
can go ahead and talk that way.
yeah, you're just using imagery to produce something. Yeah. It's not, uh, yeah.
Which is part of the interesting, like, kind of a question, right? Like that ability to use language, even though at the same time it's completely uh, not feasible as soon as you try to, you know, really analyze it.
Yeah, but it can convey something. You can put on the back of language, there's something that can be carried. Yeah.
That's what fascinates me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the whole trick, is not to get caught in the details of the packaging, but to receive the prize, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you as always.
But the thing is, it would be nice that a lot of the parables we used to hear would come with warnings. Because they get claimed so quickly, and that they become another flagellating mechanism. Yeah, I mean, most people I meet would be better off if they never heard the enlightenment or awakening. They'd be better off, because now seeing it from what they're not, it just becomes like a demand that it can never freaking accomplish. It's, so when the word enlightenment in one definition means cessation of all suffering, and at the moment someone hears the word enlightenment, the mental state triggers suffering. So I mean, you don't have to read an 800-page book. Just look at a minute or two of the activity called Paul. You see a whole lot. Yeah, you do. Yeah. The mental activity, there's a claiming that's very fast in time. Yeah. And so before you do a process, there's been a claiming of being the one in the process. Yeah. So how are you going to use the process to get out of the prior process? It doesn't work. Yeah. So the only thing that can outgun that gunslinger is something that's not of time, which is our inherent nature. Yeah. So what you are can see what you're not, because it's not of time. So we can see a manufacturing in time. Yes? And then after a while, seeing that manufacturing in time, there's a rubbing off or an intimation of a timeless nature, let's say, or let's say unconstrained by time nature. Yeah. So, and that process that is manufactured and comes after, yet claims to be before, can never ever be before what is before. Yeah, that's the beautiful news. So, when you see the activity, if you want to see it, it's beautiful. Ramana Maharshi again uses a statement he says many different ways. The one way that I use and I remember is there's a presupposing. So pre is of time, yes? Pre means before, and it implies that there's something after. That's time. So presupposing or pre-assuming of a non-existent thing. So there's a misidentification with the existence and its claim to be the non-existent thing. Yeah? Now suddenly that non-existent thing wants salvation for itself. So if this is the case, your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing. How can they destroy it? A very good question to sit with, yeah? So it doesn't mean there's anything right or wrong with practices. It means that the mental state is going to claim the practices to imply something, yeah? The practitioner, let's say, and there'll be a bondage to that self called the practitioner, and then the practices that we are doing to undo that will be reinforcing it, yeah? That's the diagnosis. And basically, it's like getting an x-ray and you go home and look at it, you see, it's like a spiritual shoe, you put it on and see if it fits. Or like a statement of whatever can be perceived can't be perceiving by Hoang Po. Bring that statement to the narration in one's head or the head and see it's totally contrary to the head's narration. The head's narration is the object that can be perceived is what's perceiving. It's not even close. It's totally diametrically opposed, so to speak. Yeah? You can't blend the one with the other. It's like water and oil. So, yeah. So the claiming is quick, maybe a second or two, I don't know. So now, when there's an action that happens through this body, there's the feeling that I'm the actor. Yes, I'm the doer. Yes or no? Answer, ask yourself. When they're seeing, isn't there an assumption that you're the seer? Yeah. And when you're the seer is pictured or thought of or imagined or remembered, what is it seen as? A body, yes? There you go. I don't care, how in a way we're defeated, but that's the defeat, yeah, if you want to see it that way. It doesn't matter, it defeats us 8,033, 450 times. It doesn't, or ways. It doesn't matter. That's how, is the identification as what you're not. Yeah? It slips in. So this is how it happens. There's an action. Maybe check it out. Yeah? There's an action. The mental state arises, claims the action. Yeah? Now, and by claiming the action, it infers that there's an actor which came after, and now that actor is presupposed to be before, and now you think you did all that stuff. Yeah? And therefore you enter a field of pride, guilt, shame, feeling great about yourself, feeling terrible about yourself. It just triggers an avalanche of attributes after the claiming of being the doer. Yeah? So each basic demonstration of consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, and noticing abstract ideas, thoughts, and ideas, those activities are claimed incessantly all day to infer or imply, or actually historically verify that you're the doer. So when you feel like a doer, you feel like you've been a doer for 40 years. It's a big dollop of time is thrown into the magic trick. So you rise to the bait. It's not you. There's a rising to the bait. The bait is taken. The bait taken implies there's a fish. The fish is noted and then feels like it's been a fish for 40 years. It's happening all day, and you're never going to get out of it as it, so you might as well just see it. And the whole point is not to try to get out of it, because getting out of it is part of being in it, yeah? You just see it. You just see the activity. Yeah, you just see the activity and see where that takes you, really.
All Geo has his hand up.
Gio?
Yeah, well, all this that you are describing, let's call it the dreaming, right? All this mechanism that you are describing, we can call it the dreaming. And when you discover all this rubbish that happens in the dreaming, you sort of lose interest in the particulars within the dreaming, right? My question is more or less like, it is just the losing of the interest in the particulars of the dreaming, and is there an increase of interest in seeing the dreaming as a whole? Is there such an increase, a swapping of interest, or is it just the losing of the interest for the particulars within the dreaming?
No, there's a big gaining of interest, but that's part of the finding out. Who want to try to describe that?
Mm.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the way I see it, I somehow now I see my interest in seeing the totality of the dream as what is interesting, and not
Yeah.
and not what within the dream that it's.
See, the movement in this case is, the first movement is a losing of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a gaining of interest. But it's much different than a mental drive of interest or mentally directed interest. It's much different. When you gain interest, there's not any plan driving it. Yeah. There's just a gaining of interest. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But who wants to describe that? That's best to be found out, my feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Now,
if I see,
let's say you were going to describe, when you jump out of an airplane with the parachute. So you're talking to the person while they're on the plane, and they're describing, okay, do this, do that, get ready, let go. You don't want to have a foot-by-foot explanation of your sensations as you drop. That's what you find out. You don't need, all the yapping was while you're in the plane.
right, because if you engage volitional interest in something else, it just becomes the same again, right? Yeah, I understand.
So this is a loss of interest, and then that's like that's in the parameters of the satsang. The gaining of interest is in your own experience. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You don't want to write a book about that, because what would happen is people would think they're not gaining interest like they were, the master was gaining interest. And then they'll fucking disqualify themselves from the event it doesn't match somebody. It's insanity. I think it's left better not said and people to find out. Yeah. Because look at what happened. Remember the early days of Western non-duality? Some would write a book and they describe an event would happen. And then people would be like, well, I didn't have that event, or I was at Costco instead of Walmart, and the toaster hit my head, but it wasn't Wednesday. It's just, and then they disqualify themselves from an inherent condition. It's insane. So, yeah, I don't think it. I saw that it didn't serve, to,
Yeah, but this is new to me because I thought that this kind of interest in seeing the totality of the dream is something that we could talk about, but now I understand. Yeah,
we can talk about it all we like,
yeah,
but it's not. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. You don't want to have then this, then after. Yes, it's a
yeah,
more.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's like, let's say you're moved by the music. It's best that you never learn any other dance steps. Yeah, there'll be an improvising of the steps. You don't need to fit it in a cha 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 or a tango. Yeah, yeah. That's more what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it becomes beautiful because there is no volition. There is no need to change the subject of interest. It just happens, and or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, at least you'll be located where you are, which is nice.
Yeah,
I mean, most people are out to lunch in a lot of ways, so at least you'll be in the vicinity of your real neighborhood. So that's good. Oh yeah, you will. The idea of being dominated by what's not happening won't be going on. No, you'll be here completely.
right.
See if you like that. You'll be incessantly here.
How boring, yeah.
Yeah. The head doesn't want to be, it's into becoming for lifetimes, but the idea that it's already is, it doesn't really hold much interest to the mental activities. It doesn't really. Yeah. The only thing that keeps them going is thinking people are going to get it or something, but yeah.
Yeah, we are
But
always back to the same thing. It's, the mind is just the mind trying to play games. Yeah,
yeah, you can look at it, and then in one way of looking at it, you make it like a newscast, and another way, it's Comedy Central. It's just really, yeah,
right. So, yeah,
yeah. It looks like the newscast, just like before, but now what's being mined out of the newscast is comedy, not. There's no facts. Yeah.
and the screen becomes bigger a little.
Well, yeah. Why not? Doesn't it feel like, as a contained action figure, there's withholding permission and permission. And a lot of what we seem to be driven to do is trying to gain permission from some fucking thing playing God to be okay, and that whole commerce gets broken. Yeah, yeah. You start at where that thing had you hopefully arriving at after jumping through 30 hoops. You start there. Yeah, yeah. Then you see that the preoccupation with the mental state is a form of slavery. because it is, like we say in recovery, a bondage of self. So basically, it's like it's got a marathon runner in a closet. Yeah, it's just it's going to be hard for that marathon runner to be happy in a fucking closet. Yeah, so it has excuses, rationalizations, blames, but it can't bring you to the promised land. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have to see it as just as a failed system. I'm not. You burn it down. None of that. There's no vanquishing it or shit. It's just it's an idea that got a little too gluttonous with the attention and interest. Really, it got bloated. Yeah, it's like Hal in 2001. It just went off. That's all. So there's a loss of interest, and it gets right sized, and it's very clear, almost under a forced humility, of what it can and cannot do. And it starts recognizing a whole lot that's being done, it has absolutely nothing to do with. So, yeah, there's it's just a great relief, really. Yeah. So, anyone else want to ask anything?
Thank you.
Rhoda has her hand up.
Rhoda,
Hey, Paul.
hey.
Just watching the confusion arise and the desire to ask a question and all of that nonsense come up. And just wondering, does it ever just disappear? I mean, do you just
No, but you'll lose interest in it for sure. I would say I don't know how it will be for you. It's going to do what it does, but in my case, I'm not checking in and seeing how I am most of the time. You know,
you're not
if you ask me how I am, I'm fucking caught. I'm surprised because I'm not. I don't have my mental fingers on the pulse of Paul. You know, really. Like, how do you feel? I have no idea. You know, so. It's more it's almost like a babbling brook, but not with water, but with bubbles. Yeah, and so they just like there's a certain sound going over, but maybe every once in a while a bell gets rung, Bill, or another bell, Amelia, or Jesus, I forgot this, Zoom with Awakening Together at 4:25, things like that. But most of it is just, if a rushing foam of bubbles would make a sound, it sounds like that. Yeah. And then there's, you blew it, Paul, once again. Or, where are the keys? Yeah. And it's also, after a talk, it's not good to get into any kind of heavy industrial equipment or anything. Yeah, it's not. I shouldn't be driving anything that has any kind of horsepower because I'm sort of out to lunch for a little while. Yeah. Don't get married or anything, no. Things like that. Don't make any major decisions. Couple hours. Like saying yes to things like this, Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. I'll talk, whatever. I've learned. That's why I didn't make any agreement. I just said, we'll do it, see what happens. Yeah. It really has a lot to do with loss of interest. I wish I knew how we could use interest to lose interest, but it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So I think your interest is in getting better. when you run into the fact that there's no one really to get better, there's a loss of interest. Yeah? And the loss of interest is about that thing that was interested in getting better. Yeah. That's where the loss of interest is. So now you get better, maybe this way or that way. Yeah. Yeah. If you're interested, we have a lot of satsangs. We just keep sharing, and if these set of shoes fit, wear them, and we're there sharing weekly, because life goes on after you leave the waterhole. It does. The sheepness is not phased one bit by a peak experience. It isn't. It just bides its time until the epiphany wanes, and then it arises. As I said, I had an incredible epiphany. It just, you better realize it's a mechanical activity. It's not volitional. It isn't. Your condition isn't going to determine it. Yeah? It's mechanical. But thank God it has no AI. It's not artificial intelligence. It's just a programming. Yeah? Whatever it's brought into contact with, there's a claiming of that to reinforce the narrative of the perceived is what's perceiving, really, pretty much. Yeah? That's it may take like 80,000 different yogic postures, but that's the basic. They're all appendages of the one posture, being up the ass of self, really. That's how we say. Yeah. So every week we play the divine proctologist. Take a nice breath when you're out of the ass of self. Go back in and see what happens. Yeah. Yeah.
And Duncan has his hand up.
Who?
It's Duncan again. Hey, Paul.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry, I'm not stalking you today, but here I am again. So I have a sort of like a devil's advocate question. I hope it doesn't sound like a challenge, but I guess, of course, I love the idea of thinking of my own experience more like Comedy Central than CNN. It's a much better approach to kind of, for my action figure, so to speak. But when you're thinking about the consensus reality that's out there, like what's happening in Yemen, for example, to call that Comedy Central as opposed to CNN is sort of insulting to the people. And like morally, it seems problematic to me somehow, because there is something actually happening there that's problematic that we should be, to whatever degree we can, trying to.
Duncan, let me jump in here.
Yeah.
I was talking about our own private Idaho, our own private CNN, not CNN in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different ball game. So, and that moves different parts in you. That this platform isn't. That those to me are outside opinions in a way. Yeah. I don't know what your action figure is going to be called to do or respond to the situations that happen in the dreaming. But the CNN, I'm not translating a CNN news broadcast about Yemen into Comedy Central. No, I'm talking about the tons of excessive meaning given through obsession with self with these very serious broadcasts, and then having them, and I don't do it into Comedy Central. I found out it changed into Comedy Central. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Like once you sort of leave the myopic thing about your own experience, I guess, the implication is that there is a consensus reality out there, right? I mean, it's not all just samsara and a dream.
Well, in fact, see, then we enter levels, like the Course in Miracles say, and then there's levels confusions. So, no, there is an importance of what's appearing, and it's completely meaningless. They're not against, they're not opposed. Yeah, that's the paradoxical thing. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't one or the other. It's really a neither in a sense. And then you get you drive both highways. Like when I drive in Australia, the only thing I remember is left. Go left. Everything, because you're on the other side of the road. Yeah. Here, you're in Rome, do as the Romans do, render unto Caesar's what Caesar's, yeah? But what allows that to be traveled lighter through is realizing you're not of Rome and you're not of Caesar. Yeah? Yeah, yeah. So, and now these are our opinions, but this isn't the platform. I'm sure I have an opinion about Yemen and you have an opinion about that, but this isn't the platform for that. Yeah, yeah. So, but no, I just want to be clear. I'm not looking at real CNN and a thing of Yemen and then making a comedy show of that. No, I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to imply that you were. It's just more thinking about, reality as a whole, as a sort of dream-like construct. And that's I guess but I like the idea that it's both and it's neither. Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is, you see, when the dreamt is thinking about the dream-like construct, that doesn't go well. When the dreaming is talking about the dreamt or seeing the dreamt, there's a lot of finding out about the construct. There's no thinking about it. There's a finding out about it. Yeah? The communication, when shared with others, may be through thought, but when it downloads, it's not of thought. Yeah. Yes? Yeah. So, I don't know where we were, but I just left for a second. But yeah, render unto Caesar's what Caesar's. Yeah. It's not as easy as it used to be, or maybe it's never been easy. First, you could be motivated as an action figure to donate, and then you find the donators were a bunch of grifters or whatever, and so now you have to do a lot of studying. And I don't like that, so I have to rely on people I know to see what, the integrity of this group, because I'm not going to spend time checking it out, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah. 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 All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We're coming to an end soon. Are we supposed to stay here an hour? Yeah, there's some other activity in 3 minutes. All right, can we end and I'll just say goodbye to everyone? Who's running this? Who's running this show?
Sure,
Yeah. I saw
3
you. So,
minutes.
yeah, let's just say goodbye, eh? And I like to go to each square. Starting with you, Sonia. Thank you.
It's Sina, but thank you.
Oh, it's Dinah.
Sina,
Oh, it says Sonia there.
Saina.
Oh, it's Dinah. I need glasses. Sorry. Well, thank you for holding the space there. Yeah. And I don't know if they'll ask me back or not. Who knows? Rhoda. Nice to see you, Rhoda.
Asking you back, Paul.
And we have Jacqueline. I got to really look. And Connie. Yes? Jacqueline transcended, I think, and Connie's here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was
Hey,
wonderful.
I say 1 out of 2 ain't bad. So. So
Wait a minute, Jacqueline's going to say goodbye.
she's back again.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Paul. Will we see you next week?
Yes.
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. If some people show up, I'll show up. I don't mind. It's fine.
Okay, that's wonderful. We love having you here. Thank you for being here. We'll be
All
here
right.
next week. Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Yes. All right.
Okay.
Remind me on Monday.
Fair enough. We can do that.
All right. And we have Patricia G. Nice to see you there, Patricia. We got Gio, my Brazilian friend. Nice to see you, Gio. Mike, he's the organizational backbone of ZenBitchSlap.com. Beverly, nice to see you, Beverly. I like that. Where are you there, Beverly?
I'm in my backyard, New Jersey.
Oh, in New Jersey. Where in New Jersey?
In Burlington, New Jersey.
Oh, Burlington, yeah. I go to Dover, New Jersey a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I speak at some rehabs down there.
Yeah.
All right. See ya. Thanks, Beverly, for coming by.
Thank you.
We got Ruby Rose from Wichita. Nice to see you again, Ruby. Yeah. We got Duncan. Always a pleasure, Duncan. Yeah. Yeah. Donna. Oh, it's Donna's moved to Tennessee.
I did. I did.
Donna. Donna is a very good friend. I only get a chance to see her usually in Toronto.
Are you going to be traveling?
Hmm?
Are you going to be traveling?
I don't know. Sooner or later.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to try and come your way sometime.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're here. Yeah. Just come over.
Hey,
We got
Paul,
Linda.
you're blocking the camera.
Oh, sorry. I had my big thumb. Hey, Linda, how are you? We got PK. He's a homeboy from Long Island. Nice to see you. Yes. Long Beach forever. Barbara, nice to see you, Barbara. Thanks for coming. Good to see you. We got Ashley. Ashley from Dallas. Nice to see you, Ashley. We got Robert. Oh, Robert Young. Ah,
Hi, Paul.
nice to see you, Robert.
Yep.
And we got iPhone George. Yes? Nice to see you, George. Sally W. How are you, Sally? Good? Good. We've got, let's see, who else? Oh, Anu. Anu. Very nice to see you, Anu. Thanks for migrating with the flock. We got Christy K and Christina and Ann and AT Radio Computer. Hey, thanks for everybody to show up, and it's my privilege and pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Yeah, go to Zen Bitch Slap. We have a lot of things going on there. And thanks again. Diana?
Bye, everyone.